So it's such a joy for us to have Brett with us this morning. And I know that he's going to share a fantastic word with us this morning. And it's great to have you with us, Brett.
Thank you. Thank you for having us, having me. Lee's always in my heart. She sends her love. Our church sends their love to you. You guys have got a wonderful church, man. If I lived here, I'd come here. But I don't, so I go to my church. And it's wonderful. A family's family, isn't it? That's the beautiful thing about God. When He does something in our hearts, He changes us. And He does an amazing thing. I got saved in 1976 on the 19th of September at 8 o'clock at night in a church called the Church of the Nazarene. I'd never heard about Jesus. I had, but it was used as a curse word in our family. I never heard about the Holy Spirit, for goodness sake. And then I didn't even know God had a book. You know, I heard there was a Bible, but I didn't know it was God's book. And then Jesus found me. And He radically changed my life. Like, I cannot believe, even today, I cannot believe it, that He loves people like me. And I am so grateful for God and His kindness. It is the main thing in my life, my relationship with Jesus. I am deeply in love with God. And He has blessed me beyond things I deserve. I have a wonderful wife, my first wife. And she says, and your last wife. And we've been together 42 years. We've been married for 37. And yeah, it is a long life. And we have two wonderful kids. My son works with me. He's one of our pastors. He's a wonderful guy. It's a real privilege to be able to follow Jesus, and then He blesses you, and you have kids, and they go, I'm going to follow Jesus. And then one of them says, well, I don't ever want to be a pastor. That's my daughter. And I'm not marrying a pastor. So we said, okay. And she's a copywriter in a big agency in Durban, and she loves Jesus in a wonderful way. And my son is a pastor with me, and he heard the call of God a couple of years ago. So it's what a privilege. We can do this together. And when I see what God's doing here, I think, wow, Nazen is not big enough for this, if you know what I mean. You got a lot of love to give, man. You start going out, Plettenberg, hugging oaks there. Keep going. If you go down south, it gets very cold. Beyond Cape Town, there's a big snowball down there. So I want to talk about something that I am loving talking about, the image of God. We are image bearers. We've been doing a series in our church called Identity. And when my slot came up to preach, I decided I'll talk about this, the very thing that's in my heart. And so I'm going to do two texts this morning. I want you to go with me if you don't mind. One is 2 Corinthians chapter 11, verse 1 to 3, and the other text will be in Genesis chapter 1 and 2. So Paul writes this letter to the church. It's a church that's growing. It's a church that's in a wonderful place of momentum, but it's also a church full of people. And people who have conflict, and there's people who have leadership issues in their own hearts, and it's manifesting as falseness. People who want positions that they don't really deserve, and they're claiming all sorts of stuff. Paul writes this letter to them. He says, I hope you will put up with my foolishness a little bit more. He speaks as a pastor, and he says, please bear with me, for I'm jealous for you with the jealousy of God Himself. And I said this the first service, I'm saying it again. Pastors understand this. We are jealous for you. We have one desire, and I know that true of Stephen D. They have one desire for you, is that when they go to heaven, they can say, Lord, we did what you called us to do. We presented this church to you as one bride to one groom, Jesus Christ. And we fight for that, and we pray for that, and we love the people God puts in our care. And so he's speaking this thing out, but he's also aware of the conflict and the reality of the situation. And he says, but I fear that some of you, somehow your pure and undivided devotion to Jesus Christ will be corrupted, just as Eve was deceived by the cunning ways of the serpent. Another version says, I'm afraid lest you are led astray, as Eve was by the serpent, from the simplicity and purity of devotion to Christ. God's original intention is that we would be in this amazing, meaningful, real, simple devotion to himself and him to us. Never a one-way street, always about the two of us. And so somewhere along the line, I think we've been duped. I think we've been hoodwinked. We've been deceived. We bought the lie. We believe that life as it is as good as it gets. We think this is our lot in life. Then we have to continually grind our way through life. And some of us are fortunate enough maybe to have hit a bit of that luck. We've got a little bit more. We're able to, plan a bit, etc., etc. It's easier for us. But the reality, that's a minute percentage of people. And the truth is that all of us, regardless of what you have or don't have, life is a grind. We believe that. We buy that. And you know what? When you believe it, you do it. And one of the things we discover very quickly, you have and I have, is life has no guarantees. You know that, hey? It's like, you just have to keep going. And one of the greatest deceptions I believe that we've bought into is that we believe, I am who I am. This is it. This is me. I am who I am. And we live that life never knowing who we really are. Because we've been lied to, we've been deceived, we've been told that this is what it is. I've often said to people, I've said it hundreds of times to our church, I've said that when you know who you are, you'll know what you're for. And when you know what you're for, you'll know what to do. And when we look at our lives and then we say, is this what I'm for? Look at your life. I don't know how often you do an audit on how you're doing. It can be a terrifying thing to ask the hard questions about ourselves. I wonder how I'm doing. We do that when there's a crisis, especially when there's no money. Because we're comparing ourselves to the okey pokies who have got the money. And we're very upset with them because they got that illegally. I believe this. I believe that we are God's creation. I believe that we are sons and daughters of God. And we are created by God, for His glory. I believe that we are created by God to be His image bearers within ourselves and in the world that we live in, on the earth and in everything that is in the earth. I believe that we are created to be image bearers. When you know who you are, you'll know what you're for. I believe that we think we know who we are, and then we miss a gap. We're not too sure what we're for, so we end up doing something that will give us identity. You understand what I'm saying? We're not too sure. So we start like this. I know what I will do that will define me as to who I am, and then I'll know what I'm for. We bought that. And it doesn't work. And if we're honest enough, we can see that doesn't work in our lives. So what I want to do is I want to talk about some of the characteristics of what it is to be God's image bearers. How we were created, how we are meant to be living. What it means to be a reflector of God's nature in the world, in our lives, in our relationships, and the world that we live in. So flip with me back to Genesis chapter 1. I'm going to pick up from verse 26 and read with me. I read from the New Living Translation, and then I'm going to swing into the Message and just give a bit of a version of that in this text. So it says, verse 26 says, then God said, let us make human beings, earthlings, in our image to be like us. It's a very interesting thing. You have to read that properly. It's not God, let me make you in my image. Let us make man in our image to be like us. You can circle that. It's a very important word. We will reign. You can circle that. We will reign. They will reign over the fish in the sea, the birds in the sky, the livestock, the wild animals on the earth, and the small animals that scurry along the ground. So God created human beings in his own image, male and female. He created them. And then God blessed them. And look what he says. And you've got to underline this. And he said, be fruitful, multiply. I imagine most of you have got that underlined if you have a Bible in your Bible. If you have a device, it's like highlighted in your device. The next part most probably is not. Fill the earth and govern it. We're not too sure what that means, so we go, that's the government's problem. Am I right? Then it says reign over. We definitely have that. Reign over the fish in the sea, birds in the sky, all the animals that scurry along the ground like poodles, squirrels, and rats. And then God said, look, I have given every seed-bearing plant throughout the earth and all the fruit trees for your food. I have given every green plant as food for the animals and birds in the sky and animals that scurry along the ground. Everything that has life. And that's what happened. And then God looked over all that made on the first day. He looked over everything he made and he said, it is good. And then on the second day, he created another part of creation. And he looked at it and he said, it is good. On the third day, he was continuing to create all that was created. And he had finished that part and he said, look at it, it is good. On the fourth day, he did the same, and he looked out and he said, it's good. And the fifth day, he looked out and he went, wow, this is good. And then he made man, and he said, it is very good. Wow, the crowning jewel of creation. Isn't that amazing? To believe anything else is deception, is a lie. Evening passed, morning came, marking the sixth day. If you go to the Message version, if you have, Eugene Peterson writes it like this. He says, let us make human beings in our image, making them reflecting our nature, like a mirror. So they can be responsible for the fish of the sea, the birds in the air, the cattle, and yes, the earth itself, and every animal that moves on the face of the earth. God created human beings. He created them godlike, reflecting God's nature. He created male and female. He blessed them, and I love this part. He blessed them. Prosper, reproduce, fill the earth, take charge, be responsible for the fish in the sea and the birds in the air, for everything living that moves on the face of the earth. Our original design was this. What's gone wrong? Our original design was that we would be in a relationship with God and live in his eternal presence with simple and pure devotion to him and him to us. That's how we were created. We were created to bear his image, to reflect his image within ourselves on the earth, to the birds in the air and the animals on the earth and the fish in the sea. We are meant to be image bearers of God in all things. So I'm going to give you a list of a few things. I'm going to give you a list on this side. This is my left side, your right side, I would imagine. And on this side is the characteristics of what it is to be an image bearer of God. On this side, you've got blanks. And you compare your life as it is with how you're meant to be, how we were created. First characteristic would be, I believe that we would walk with God, that we would talk to God, that we would follow God. We would listen to God and we would listen for God. We would love him with our hearts and our beings and we would worship him. As image bearers, we carry deeply within us the nature of God's love. The reason why we can love God, the reason why God is so confident that we can be those people is because He's put within us His image, the nature of His love. Paul wrote to the Ephesian church in chapter 3, and he says, though this love is so hard to comprehend, the width, the depth, the height, and the length of this love, it doesn't matter if you understand the massive love that God has for us. The reality is He's put the image of that love in us. The second characteristic, that we would reign, that we would take charge, that we would be responsible and faithful stewards of all that we've been entrusted to. That we would be those people. That we would live our lives purposely from that place. We move so far from that. We just swat bees out of the sky because we're scared they're going to sting us. We chop down trees because we want to make things or burn things with it. We blast up hills and earth to extract valuable stuff. We plunder and pollute the sea. What on earth have we done? We walked away from who we are. We deny who we are. We are image bearers of God. When a bee flies by, it goes, image bearer. Hello? Are you with me? Oh, that tree's in the way. Let's chop it down. The tree's going, I see my image bearer. Oh dear, he's carrying an axe. We become so selfish as human beings. We think this is about us. But as image bearers, we carry with us the authority and the power of the King within us, of His kingdom, to advance kingdom life where we are. He's put that within our image. The third one is that we would live fruitful and prosperous lives. That we would live a life of abundance. We would live out of God's faithful provision. As image bearers, we carry within us the nature of our extravagantly generous God. It's within us. You know, can I detour? Money is one of the hardest things to talk about anywhere. Most difficult place to talk about money is the marriage. Correct? Second most difficult place to talk about money? Church. So when you mention something like this, there's an immediate cringe factor that goes on. But we weren't created like that. Because within us, we carry within us the image, we bear the image of God, that He is an extravagantly generous God. And we live out of His full. Now we should take up an offering. Now we should talk about this stuff. On this side, these are these characteristics that we have been created with. On this side is us. How's it going? That's our reality. The fourth one would be that we would multiply and that we would reproduce. Now, some people have taken that seriously. I know these oaks have. And there are lots of people on the earth go, 8 children is a mark. But it's much more than that. You know what it is? It's realizing there is much more. There's more for us. How often have you said to yourself, if we're honest, there's got to be more? Am I right? There's got to be more. And the Lord has made us His image bearers. We carry within us, I believe, the eternal significance of living in God's presence. Wherever we go, we fill the earth with the glory of God. We move our lives away from trying to be successful to living a life of eternal significance, that what I do counts for eternity's sake. What I do doesn't get me into eternity. What I do counts for eternity's sake. Look what you did here. 200 and something young people pitch up and dance and eat hot dogs and have all that sort of stuff that counts for eternity's sake. Because you believe in the deepest part of your being, living eternally significant lives is what matters more. Who cares who's got a big church or a small church? That's not the issue. The issue is we are God's image bearers who carry within us the eternal significance of living in God's eternal presence. The fifth characteristic would be that we would fill the earth with the wonders of who He is. Fill the earth. Fill the earth. Most of us don't know what does that mean. You know, when we start learning to be those people, when we allow ourselves to be people who will fill the earth, and as a result of that, we start seeing God then filling the earth with His glories because we choose to fill the earth with who He is. I believe this, that as image bearers of God, we carry within us the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. Fill the earth. There is no space too small, and there is no space too large that God cannot fill. There is no sin too great, and there is no sin too small, because His love and forgiveness covers it all. We are image bearers of God. Genesis 2:15 says, "Then the Lord placed the man in the garden to tend and watch over it. But the Lord warned him, you may freely eat from every tree in the garden, except from the tree of the knowledge of fruit of good and evil." You can eat of everything, but don't eat of that. As image bearers, God has placed us at the very center of everything that He's created, to reflect His nature to all. In who we are and wherever we are and in everything we do, we are to be reflecting the nature of God, be image bearers of Him. I believe that Eden was a physical expression of what living in God's presence would be like for us. Everything and more. Abundance, like no end. And then in the middle of Eden, God plants two trees. The tree of life and the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. And he's saying, guys, you need to know there's abundance here. There is more than you could ever imagine. This is an overflowing experience we're going to have. There is life here. And I've made you for this. And you carry within you my image. You're bearers of my image. You're reflecting this to all that's created. But you have to choose. You have to choose. And I'm going to give you a warning. How thick are we? You have to choose, but I'm giving you a warning. Like, this is the hint. If you eat from this tree, the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, you're going to die. It's like when you see a sign on the side of the road or in a park, and it's like nice green square, and it's got, stay off the grass. And I know it has a different meaning. I said that earlier, so I just want to catch it up. I know staying off the grass in Nasna means a different thing, if you know what I mean. We Durban Oaks know you Oaks, eh? We know you moved from Durban, don't you? And so when you see a sign like that, stay off the grass, what goes through your mind? If I put my foot on the grass, will anyone notice? We're lawbreakers by heart, aren't we? So we walk up to the little patch, look around, we're like, look, no one's here. La, la, la. and we put our foot close and we sneak it over the line. And we hear no rifles, no sirens, no warning signs. And we go, this is all right. Well, I'll put my whole foot on. What the heck? It's a low patch, as you can see. And we think, well, that's okay. That's how we live. We think living like that's like the balanced life. 1 foot out, 1 foot in. Break the law, stay. We think it's okay to eat off the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, and then we eat a lot of the other fruit, which is good fruit. It'll keep us healthy. We won't die. We've been deceived to believe that our choices are better than God's instruction. We've been deceived to believe that His instruction will cage us up and our choices will free us up. And how wrong we are. A business friend of mine, in a conversation we were having, just blurted out this thing, and I wrote it down. It says, a little choice can become a big correction. Choice. So God says this, choose. Choose. You choose. You choose, eat off the tree of life, be my image bearer, or you choose, eat off the tree of the knowledge of good and evil and break relationship with me. You choose. It's a choice. I think one of the most wonderful characteristics of God's image in us is that we, of all creation, us humans, have been given free will. We can choose. We have the ability and the freedom to choose between life and death, blessing and curse. We have that choice. I love what the Deuteronomy text says. Oh, that you would choose life, that you and the generations after you would live. That we would choose. Image bearer characteristic number 6 for me is this, that as His image bearers, you and I carry the power to choose. We have free will. We can choose life.